to Dr. Phil.
I truly believed that I had the perfect marriage with the perfect husband.
Until U.S. Marshals held her at gunpoint and arrested her husband.
They said he is being charged with 4 counts of child rape. I thought it was a mistake. I never knew he was a predator. I never knew that I was living with a child rapist.
And now,
Brittany, it's got to be disgusting to you that he's playing the victim. You don't want this to become part of who you are. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. This TikTok video behind me has nearly 3 million views, and the young woman in it never utters a single word. There are only subtitles telling how she was held at gunpoint by U.S. Marshals who arrived at her home to arrest her husband of 10 years. Her name is Brittany, and she says before that knock on the door, she thought her marriage to Lorenzo, the father of her 2 children, was nothing short of perfect. A fairy tale where she was treated like a princess. But on January 17th, 2019 at 2:30 p.m., that fairy tale turned into a horrible nightmare.
The day that changed my life was January 17th, 2019. I was cleaning the house with my ex-husband. We turned church on the TV. We were laughing and joking. All of a sudden, I turn around to the glass door and I see 10 to 15 guns at the back door. They start banging on the back door and they say, "This is the police, open up." And he looks at me and says, "What are we supposed to do?" They pulled me outside, held me at gunpoint, and he took off the opposite direction. They showed me a picture that I've never seen before and said, "Is this your husband?" And I, in shock, said, "Yes, it is." And they said, "He is being charged with 4 counts of child rape." I told them they must have the wrong person. I thought it was a mistake. They then told me that they had been investigating us for the past 6 months and they had proof and that I needed to calm down and come to reality.
U.S. Marshals arrest a Metro man for allegedly making child porn and stalking a teenage girl.
Investigators were eventually led to Arredondo, who was married with children.
The police came inside the house to go get Lorenzo, pulled him out. They just took him away, ripped him out of our lives. That was the last time we saw him.
Well, Brittany says she wanted to believe authorities had made a terrible mistake. But after sitting down with a detective, Brittany says she learned the man she thought she knew had a very deep and a very dark secret.
I truly believed that I had the perfect marriage with the perfect husband. I never knew he was a predator. I never knew that I was living with a child rapist.
Lorenzo Arredondo has been charged with 14 sex crimes. The suspect is accused of posting a 17-year-old boy raping a young girl, recording it and posting it on a pornographic site.
The detective brought me over to a computer. He covered the girl's private parts and showed me my ex-husband's face. I have never felt so much rage and hate for somebody in my life. I felt like I was going to pass out, seeing his face and identifying him and knowing that this was all real.
An Oklahoma City police investigation revealed 30-year-old Lorenzo Arredondo was behind the fake profile. He used the name Frankie Garcia on social media. The first victim, a 14-year-old girl, told her family in November that she met him through Facebook and they started a sexual relationship.
The detective showed me a 2-inch thick file who the person I had been living with really was. I was completely shocked and devastated to see the list of charges. Some of them included child rape, creating and producing child pornography, and forcible.
Police opened a second case on the man when the father of a 13-year-old girl notified officers about an unusual note.
Followed her home and left a note on her porch telling her he wanted to meet her.
The suspect left his phone number and Snapchat name on the note. Investigators were eventually led to Arredondo.
He did make contact with another juvenile female victim. The other alleged victim most likely was not ready to disclose any of the sexual in nature things happening to her.
I had no idea that my ex-husband was living a double life. It's terrifying that I could sleep next to such a monster every night for 10 years and never knew that I was sleeping next to evil.
Well, joining me virtually is Brittany. And Brittany, I'm really glad that you're willing to talk about this because it's a real teachable moment for those that get on the internet and for these young kids that are out there not knowing who they're talking to. Now, the first time this happened, obviously you were in shock. You had a hard time believing this could be the man you had been sleeping with for 10 years.
I was in complete shock. And it was the biggest betrayal of my life.
And when this happened, this was like 2:30 in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, it was right before I had to go pick up my son from school. And I had to pull myself together and act like the most tragic thing of my life didn't just happen and go pick up my son from school.
And you found out that they had been watching the two of you for 6 months, right?
Yes, that was very hard for me, just knowing that they had all of our messages, all of our calls. They had been outside of our house even watching us. It was terrifying.
They had a 2-inch file on who your husband really was.
So whenever I went to go sit with the detective, he pulls out a 2-inch file telling me how much of a monster he really was. One of the things specifically that really stuck with me was he would take advantage of the time dropping our son off at school to prey on children that were walking to school. And the detective showed me one text specifically where he texted a little girl that she looked sexy with her backpack on walking to school.
So he was using your son as a prop, essentially, to have a reason to be around all these children.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you looked at, and I think they used this as part of the identification, was identifying your ex-husband's face from an image of him in the act with a teenage girl. You got to take me through that moment of looking at his face in that moment doing what he was doing. What did you say to yourself?
I think I actually blacked out. Like my brain kind of just shut off because it was so much trauma at once. At that point, I knew that was Frankie Garcia, not Lorenzo, my husband.
Yeah. Well, next, Brittany claims that while her husband sat in jail, she was contacted by a 19-year-old girl on Facebook who claimed Lorenzo was hiding more secrets. We'll talk about that after the break. As you process this through your brain, was he hypersexual in the 10 years that you knew him?
You know what's crazy is he was actually opposite.
And later, you actually wrote him a letter, making it very clear where you stood, correct?
Yes, I did.
Did you send this letter before or after you burned all of his belongings?
Tomorrow. Next, Dr. Phil Classic.
My mom used to butt out.
Moms who can't mind their own business.
I have no problem going through my kids' dresser drawers, lifting up their mattresses. Safe sex.
They say, oh yeah, she found that condom. She doesn't know about the baby.
Open the door. I'm just a loving, concerned mother.
Do you really think that?
Yes, it's just who you talk to.
Well, I'm talking to you. You're on the Dr. Phil show.
That's tomorrow. Then on Monday, sentenced to death for killing a sheriff, but is the wrong man on death row.
Why should people believe you didn't shoot this deputy sheriff?
It's not about believing me, it's about believing the evidence.
That's Monday.
Once she actually saw her videos on a pornographic site online, was it her or her parents contacted the authorities at that point?
It was her mother at the time. Did my interview with the victim, the juvenile, and she confirmed that was her in the video with this suspect. He made a mistake and attached his email address to one of the porn sites that he downloaded the videos to that led me to him. I've been doing this for a long time, and this was very uncharacteristic. I was really expecting him to be a much younger type guy, maybe single, something to that nature, to actually find the time to be flirting or getting to know a teenage child.
Brittany Arredondo was married to the suspect Lorenzo Arredondo. They had a family and life, and in January, when Lorenzo was arrested, she said there were no warning signs.
She honestly thought she had the perfect marriage when I interviewed her. She never called me a liar, but you could tell that she was like, there's no way this could be my husband. I mean, it took convincing, and had to share information with her until she actually realized, my Lord, this is my husband that's doing this.
And they were both right. Lorenzo Arredondo was convicted of multiple sexual crimes against a teenage girl and posting videos of those crimes online. One of the detectives on the case says Brittany had a hard time imagining her loving husband could have committed such atrocious acts. As Lorenzo sat behind bars, Brittany says she learned even more about the man she called her husband for 10 years.
About a month after the arrest, I finally worked up enough courage to finally go into my bedroom because I wanted to collect Lorenzo's stuff and burn it to kind of help me be able to heal a little bit and also to get his stuff out of the house. And I find a secret phone, a second phone. The most horrific, disgusting things were on that phone. What I found made me realize even more of how much of a monster he was. There were videos of him following women and children throughout the store and recording them in inappropriate places and preying on them. I also found adult porn on the phone, and I immediately called the detective, and then I received a Facebook message from a 19-year-old girl. She told me that she was actually Lorenzo's girlfriend, which was absolutely shocking. While I was on a business trip to Florida, he left our kids at home by themselves. She claimed that he picked her up, brought her to my house, and then had sex with her in my bed. She told me that she knew him as Frankie Garcia. She claimed that they had a whole life planned out. They were even going to have a baby. My ex-husband was leading a double life, and I had no idea.
Well, Brittany, when you talked to this 19-year-old girl, was she credible? Did you believe that she, in fact, was in a relationship with him?
I believe she was very credible. She said things that nobody else would know. So, yeah, sadly, it was true. It was very shocking to me, though, because I still cannot comprehend how he had time to do this. Like, how do you have a whole girlfriend on the side, too? And
she said that she actually caught Frankie talking to two other girls online, right?
Yes, that was crazy to me.
So, seriously, as you process this through your brain, was he hypersexual in the 10 years that you knew him?
You know what's crazy is he was actually opposite. He denied me of sex all the time. I was a sexual person. He was not.
And when you talked to him about this, and I know you have, what did he say to you?
He expected us to still be a family. He expected me to still be the loving, loyal wife and be devoted to him still and stand beside him through this. He expected to still see our children, which is disgusting. He pretty much acted like he didn't do anything.
After taking a plea deal and being sentenced to 15 years for his crimes against a teenage girl, Lorenzo wrote letters to Brittany saying exactly that he expected her to stand by his side and that he wanted those children in his life, pleading with her, expecting that she would deliver those children right into his hands. We'll be right back.
A couple weeks after Lorenzo's arrest, he started sending me letters. Lorenzo was telling me he apologizes for what he did, saying he's surrounded by killers. I basically told him to go himself.
My first guest for the new season of Fill in the Blanks has never been on. My son, Jordan, and his new wife, Morgan. What's Morgan do when she gets stressed?
Oh my God, when am I not stressed?
That's pretty much the answer.
Both of you live in town with your in-laws. How's that work?
I think we do.
Watch it.
We both like our own parents. It makes it easy to like each other's.
When your parents found out that you were getting married and you were having a baby, what was their first reaction?
She screamed. They were so happy.
Fill in the Blanks, new season on Apple Podcast and Stitcher.
The thing that has haunted me the most is thinking back to certain moments and realizing those were red flags. He was a master manipulator. He could hide anything. Every morning, he made it seem like a favor to take my son to school and let me sleep in. And I now know that that's because he was preying on children. He would take advantage of the time he used. He eventually started denying me sex. He would go buy me surprise gifts and presents, and I now know it was to go stalk women and children at the store. I am almost positive that he's committed a lot more crimes than we know about.
Well, with 2 beautiful children and 10 years married to the love of her life, Brittany says she trusted her husband implicitly. But now, looking back, she can see that trust blinded her from seeing the monster that he really was. Brittany says it's been a while since her now ex-husband has written her, but when he did, she claims he played the victim.
A couple weeks after Lorenzo's arrest, he started sending me letters from prison. How dare he write me letters and expect us to still be a family and expect me to still be a loving wife. Within these letters were lots of excuses, lots of memories that he was trying to manipulate me with and trying to make me feel bad. And he also added that I should put something on his books, specifically $2,000 of our tax returns. He's completely in denial. Lorenzo was telling me he apologizes for what he did, saying he's surrounded by killers. He expected to still see our kids. He came up with lots and lots of excuses for his actions. I was not going to tolerate that at all. Lorenzo continued calling me his Princess Peach. He acted like we were supposed to still be in love. I basically told him to go himself, and I didn't hear from him again. I told Lorenzo that I will make sure he never, ever sees the kids a day in his life again. He created this horrible reality, and he deserves it. He has to live with it.
Well, Brittany, it's got to be disgusting to you that he's playing the victim here, and you actually wrote him a letter making it very clear where you stood, correct?
Yes, I did.
You said, and I'm quoting now, to my ex-husband, "You truly never loved me. You took advantage of me for years. It was obviously a sick-ass game you played while I was at home, loving and supporting you endlessly and unconditionally. I'm obviously not your soulmate. A soulmate would never do this to their love. But thanks to you, I found mine. You're now surrounded by killers, violence, and liars. That's exactly where you belong. Stop trying to manipulate me. I'll never be yours again. You can rot and blank completely off. Sincerely, your ex-wife." That had to be cathartic to write that letter to him and get that off your chest.
It was very healing to write that letter.
Did you send this letter before or after you burned all of his belongings?
I sent that after. Burning his stuff was very healing for me, and then it gave me the strength I needed to go ahead and send the letter.
And what motivated you to do the TikTok video?
I specifically did it just to make other women and children not feel so alone, because whenever I was going through it, I felt completely alone.
Brittany's emotional TikTok video didn't only get millions of views, it also garnered some hateful comments about her. We'll talk about that after the break.
Lorenzo destroyed my self-esteem. He made me have issues that I never thought I would have. I look back and I wonder, did he record me and post me on pornographic sites? I was living with a psycho. I created a TikTok account so I could raise awareness for this matter and try to reach out to the victims and make other victims not feel so alone, and just to help others. And I received a lot of love and positivity, but I also received a lot of hate. Some of them include, I need attention, so I make up stories about abuse. You knew, get the out of here. What's your point? You got your new man. Why do you think this is worth sharing? You drag it up on your kids, best forget, not share. And that honestly hurt me.
Well, Brittany says she posted her story on TikTok. She never imagined nearly 3 million people would view it, but she also never imagined there would be so many hateful comments directed at her, not him, her. She also didn't imagine posting on TikTok would lead her talking to me, but she says she's grateful that it did because she could certainly use some help.
Lorenzo completely destroyed me from the inside out, mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially. He destroyed my self-esteem. He made me have issues that I never thought I would have, feeling like I'm worthless, ugly, or wondering what was wrong with me. I was living with a psycho, and I cannot blame myself, but I still do. He was a fraud and an imposter. He actually left me with bills that he lied to me about and told me that he paid. He broke our entire family. He broke his mother. He broke my mother. He hurt my son deeply, and I have no idea what I will tell my kids whenever they are at the right age. I can't imagine how the victims are handling everything that he put them through. I look back and I wonder, did he do the same thing to me? Did he record me and post me on pornographic sites? I have PTSD from the marshals coming to my house. A ring at the doorbell triggers it. I don't understand how I was so fooled by my ex-husband.
Well, Brittany, I'm glad we did wind up talking about this because, first off, I don't care what you do, what you put up on the internet, wherever you put it up, haters are going to come out. And in analyzing all the feedback, I point two things out to you. One is the vast, vast, vast majority of people that responded and gave you feedback was exceedingly positive and supportive, such as one of the strongest women I've seen. You are so incredibly brave for posting this. Thank you for sharing. You are stronger than you imagine. I have chills. Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then there are a few haters, and you really can't personalize that. But the one thing that I do want to talk to you about with regard to things being said are the things that you're saying to yourself. He threw away his family like we never mattered. I feel filthy myself. Biggest betrayal of my life. Super skeptical of everyone. Husband is the only person I trust. He destroyed me from the inside out every way imaginable. That's an internal dialogue that you simply cannot endorse. You can't embrace that kind of self-talk because it becomes what you believe about yourself and who you are. And you can't give him that power. And I can't diagnose you sitting here, but when you talk about a knock on the door, a ring of the bell, nightmares, keeping the blind shut, breaking down and not knowing why, those sound very much like clear signs of PTSD. And I do think that the PTSD is not limited to the trauma of the raid. I think they're also associated with the betrayal that you endured. And the question is, how does Brittany begin to heal from the trauma she's endured, and what does she do with all of this? If she doesn't find meaning to the suffering, that makes you insane. But if you find some meaning, if you create some meaning, then it gives you a purpose. And she definitely has a purpose, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. When things are on the internet, they live there forever. What do you plan to tell your children when the question comes up?
I am terrified of that day.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil Classic. Moms who can't mind their own business.
I have no problem lifting up their mattresses. Safe sex.
They say, oh yeah, she found that condom. She doesn't know about the baby.
That's tomorrow.
Brittany shares 2 young children with her now ex-husband and worries about the future. What happens when she has to explain to them what is the history, what has happened. And the day will come when you do have to talk to them about this, because when things are on the internet, they live there forever. What do you plan to tell your children when the question comes up?
I am terrified of that day. I have no idea how to talk to them about it.
Here's the thing. You will be a different person when you do that than you are right now. You are suffering, in my opinion, some emotional fallout from this, as anyone would. And you have to deal with this PTSD. This is a very real thing. It has to be dealt with and it has to be treated. And if you're just talking to other women that have been through similar situations and similar betrayal, then you're just sharing drama with people that have been through the drama. You have to heal yourself before you can pay it forward. And you owe that to yourself, you owe it to your children, you owe it to your new husband. Because trust me, until you do, they're not getting 100% of Brittany. And then when it comes time to talk to your children about it at the right time, from a position of strength, you can say, he was a very sick man, and he did things that he shouldn't have done. And that happens when someone gets really sick mentally, and he was very sick mentally. And that's not something that's passed on to others. It wasn't passed on from him to you. You're your own people. But this is something that he was afflicted with, and he's paid the price for it, and you move on. And they'll understand that when they're old enough, and you can give it to them with a message of peace and well-being. But you've got to take care of yourself first. Are you doing anything to deal with your PTSD?
I am not doing anything at all to deal with that. I haven't even gone to therapy, so.
Well, will you let me help you with that?
Yes, I would love that.
Well, because I certainly will. And look, there's a very specific protocol for dealing with PTSD that involves both neurological and psychological aspects. And while we're in this pandemic, we can do that through telemedicine and teletherapy, so you can remain safe in your own home through Doctor on Demand, which is a company that does just this. My son started the company, so I know it's a good one. They're board certified and licensed physicians and psychologists that we will set you up with that will help you in the privacy of your own home, one-on-one, learn what you need to learn to manage this PTSD and move forward with this. And as you do, you'll feel yourself coming out of this as though a weight's lifted off of your shoulders. You deserve that, your husband deserves that, and your children deserve that. And I would like to get you started on that right away. It's been long enough. You don't want this to become part of who you are.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, that's amazing.
And thank you for sharing your story. It's very, very important for people to hear. And it could be worse. And I want you to listen to the next guest that we're going to talk to, and you'll see what I mean. Kristen says she knows how it feels when someone you love betrays your trust and commits unthinkable sexual crimes against a child. But for Kristen, divorce was simply not an option because the perpetrator here was her 15-year-old son. Last season, Kristen and her husband, Rick, were on this stage faced with a heartbreaking decision about what to do with the son they worried was a pedophile. We'll find out how things are going now after the break. They fear their son, Robbie, is a pedophile.
We found out that Robbie had sexually assaulted 2 young girls. He was completely unapologetic about it.
So the thought of raping somebody makes you happy.
Right.
Has COVID-19 started major conflict within your family? If so, we want to hear from you. You're not alone. drphil.com. I'll be watching for your story. If it's chosen, I might just be able to help. Last season, we met parents Kristen and Rick who were worried their 15-year-old son, Robbie, was a pedophile. Robbie not only admitted he had strong sexual urges towards young children, he also confessed to sexually abusing 2 victims. Now, Kristen and Rick were being left with difficult decisions of where to place Robbie in foster care because he was just weeks away from being discharged from a treatment facility and admitted he was still a danger to others. They fear their son, Robbie, is a pedophile.
Robbie had sexual urges towards his siblings as well as other children. He said that if he could offend them, he would force them to tape their mouth shut and keep them quiet. We put a safety plan in place. That included installing locks on the kids' bedroom doors, and he said that if we didn't get him help that day, that he was going to rape one of his siblings.
We had no other choice than to remove him from the house.
We left him at the hospital, and he never came home.
Research says molesters with pedophilia will have an average of 70 acts of molestation. So these are prolific offenders.
Robbie prefers little boys ages 5 and under. In one of his psychological reports, we found out that he was interested in S&M. Robbie has admitted to being aroused by 27 different violent scenarios, most of them involving young boys.
There's no chance of him coming back to the house when he's released. I feel like I failed as a father.
Are you in denial about this?
Yeah.
But you do get, if you pretend this isn't the case, it's not going to go away. Right. I know you know that at an intellectual level, but emotionally, I think you're having a hard time wrapping your head around that this is the reality.
I noticed early on was that Robbie always seemed overly affectionate towards his sisters. Around the time Robbie hit puberty, he was constantly looking for opportunities to look up porn. We discovered that Robbie had 2 Facebook accounts and was trying to contact an older man through one of them.
I was just so stunned.
You are not to blame here. This is over your pay grade. This is not something that you can parent him out of. I just want to be clear about that.
We found out that Robbie had sexually assaulted 2 young girls. He was completely unapologetic about it.
It was like a punch to the gut.
I felt absolutely devastated.
You said that it was hard to say the words son and pedophile together. That's just not something a parent wants to say.
For so long, we've sugarcoated it and said he's becoming a pedophile. But yesterday, for the first time, I said my son is.
When you think about what you did, do you feel bad about that?
I feel excited when I think of it.
So the thought of raping somebody makes you happy.
Right.
When you go out in public, you fantasize about raping strangers.
Right.
Can you tell me like how you feel when you think about raping people?
It gives me joy, excitement, peaceful.
How do you think that they would feel?
I don't think twice about how other people would feel. I just think of how I would feel.
If you bring him home, you will lose all 6 children because Child Protective Services will descend on you like SWAT team and take them all out of the home. This is not a psychological condition. This is a medical, neurological condition.
I've searched high and low looking for other treatment facilities, but I just keep falling short.
The clock is ticking, and very, very soon, this child is going to be on the curve. Well, after numerous treatment programs to help her teenage son quell his sexual urges towards younger children, Kristen says she's come to the realization her son may never get better. Kristen says, sadly, her other children do not want their brother to be part of their lives. So Kristen made a heart-wrenching decision.
Some days it's hard looking at these pictures because they used to be up on the wall, and now there's just nails where his pictures used to hang. And I know that for the sake of my other children, the pictures needed to come down. It's just this little piece of me that feels like it's missing, and it's just sad inside. And then we have this closet where we keep all of his stuff. It's really hard to look in here because when I look at his stuff, I just remember a different child. I remember the little boy who hit his first ball and took off running around those bases, and he was so proud. I just don't have it in me to get rid of his stuff. I keep his bedding, and I never washed it. So when I miss him, I can still smell him on it. Because believe it or not everything about that child is bad. There was also the good. And I do miss him. I miss him every day. If he can't get better, at least his story can help someone else get better. Together, we can make a real impact and a difference. And if nothing else, he deserves to give others hope.
Well, sadly, after 4 months in the program that we arranged for Robbie, Kristen says that Robbie was just unwilling to work the program. He was unwilling to participate. He was unwilling to really engage. So charges were pressed against him, and he is in a state-run treatment facility for sex offenders. Joining us virtually is Kristen. Kristen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you're still in contact with Robbie on a regular basis, correct?
Yes.
And what is your assessment of him now as his mother? Do you believe he's where he needs to be, or do you believe he would be a threat to children if he was free in society?
I do not feel that he could live among people normally. I think that the best course of action is certainly to keep him in treatment until he can realize the impact his actions would have upon his victims. And if we can't build that empathy, then I'm afraid that he would hurt so many others.
Mm-hmm. So where does Kristen go from here? I'll tell her what I think after the break. Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else. Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today. Well, I've been talking with Kristen and Brittany, both who have had someone they love commit sexual assaults against children. And I'm proud to say that both of these strong and courageous women have used their life stories to help others who are suffering in silence, living in shame, confusion, not knowing what to do, where to turn, how to get help. And we get so much feedback, and I can tell you that people are desperate for the kind of information that both of you are sharing.
I feel like I have found peace in helping other people, and I've also gotten messages from all sides of this. I've helped victims in another country to get help, and also perpetrator get help before he victimized again.
And so for me, it's extremely empowering to reach people and help them to get the help that they want and need. And if we can't change Robbie, we're still going to work hard to save others.
Yeah. Well, you know, 19 years ago, when we launched Dr. Phil, I made a commitment that one of the things I was going to do is talk about the silent epidemics in America. Because I can tell you, 19 years ago, you just didn't talk about these things in polite society. You didn't talk about what Brittany's been through, what you, Kristen, have been through. But by talking about it, it does help other people. And for both of you, this isn't something you ever get over. It's happened to you, and nothing will erase that. You don't get over it, you get through it. You move on, you get through it, you find meaning to the suffering, and that meaning is in learning from it and helping others and moving forward.
Thank you so much for bringing awareness to this topic, because it is near and dear to our heart, and it's all we can do is be an army together and bring awareness.
Thank you both for coming on and talking about this today. It means an awful lot. I can't begin to tell you.
Dr. Phil, thank you so much for having me on the show. It is an honor. I appreciate it so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
And if you would like more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. And I'm going to have some information on there. You know, what are the warning signs, what to watch for, how to protect your children. I mentioned Doctor on Demand, and if you at home want to have your own Doctor on Demand, you can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download the Doctor on Demand app. This is a company that was created by my son, Jay. And Doctor on Demand is waiving copays for Medicare Plan B beneficiaries during COVID-19 to make it easier for you to see a board-certified doctor from the safety of home. So, and if you are a Medicare Part B, your beneficiary, your visit will cost $0. So every effort is being made to help everybody during this pandemic. Thank you for being here. Be safe. We'll see you next time.
Memories can kill ya, but it didn't hear ya. I thought that I could fly, but woke up on the asphalt. I swear there was the last storm. I've always been naive. Call it.
You know we gon' get it.